Hello everyone. As you all know that the budget has been released yesterday. So today we will be going through a discussion of this budget 2019 and 20. In this we will majorly focus on those areas which are important for us from preliminary examination point of view and also look at various facts which are important for us from the mains examination point of view. And this discussion has been divided into various parts and it will be focusing on the infrastructure sector, the social sector, initiatives related to space and also external affairs initiatives. And at the beginning, we will try to understand various trends in the macroeconomic indicators like fiscal deficit, current account deficit, etc. So let us start our discussion. Now, before starting the discussion on budget, let us look at some of the previous year questions which have been based on the budget document. So if you go through the question that was asked in the year 2018, it was related to the important changes which were introduced in the budget of 2018 and 19 related to the long-term capital gains tax and dividend distribution tax. So that is why such changes which are introduced in the budget document can be important for us from the mains examination point of view. Also, the budget that was presented in the year 2017 and 18, the question that was asked in the mains examination of 2017 was that one of the intended objectives of the Union Budget 2017 and 18 is to transform, energize and clean India. So basically the theme of that budget was transform, energize and clean India. And in the discussion ahead you will find that government has recently released the vision document for the next decade. So that is why such vision statements or the themes of the budget can be a potential question for your mains examination. Further, if you look at the preliminary examination questions which are related to the budget document, you will find that in the year 2011 in the preliminary examination, the question was related to the difference between vote on account and the interim budget. Further, in the year 2018, the question was related to the FRBM Act and the proposed committee and the changes. And in the year 2014, the question was based on the concept of plan and non-plan expenditure. Now, besides these direct questions have also been asked based on various facts which are present in the budget document. For example, we will discuss ahead that a question was asked related to the India's ranking in the purchasing parity terms across the world. And this was asked in the 2019 preliminary examination. So that is why you will find many indirect questions from the budget document statements. And the budget document being the government's most important economic policy document, it becomes very important for us from the exam point of view. So now let us take up the discussion of the budget. Now, before understanding the key provisions of the budget of 2019 and 20, let us understand which all documents are presented in the parliament during the budget. So, various documents are presented in the parliament based on constitutional provisions as well as FRBM Act or the Fiscal Responsibility and the Budget Management Act. So, here you should note that the annual financial statement, demand for grants and finance bill, these three are presented under the provisions of Indian Constitution. Further, you should note that the term budget has not been used in the Constitution and the term for budget that is used in the Constitution is the annual financial statement. Further, annual financial statement is presented under the Article 112, demand for grants under Article 113 and finance bill, which is a money bill, is presented under the Article 110. Further, in the year 2003, the Government of India legislated the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act, and this aims at fiscal discipline in the government expenditure. And various targets for fiscal deficit and the government debt have been provided under this FRBM Act. And under this FRBM Act, mainly three statements are presented. The first is the macroeconomic framework statement, second is the medium-term fiscal policy statement, and the third one is the fiscal policy strategy statement. So this is the first document, this is second, and this is the third document. Now these two documents are presented along with the budget, and this document is presented 1 month after the presentation of budget. Finally, there are certain support documents that are also presented, and these documents expand the scope of the budget. And these include the expenditure budget, receipt budget, expenditure profile, budget at a glance, and memorandum explaining the provisions in the finance bill. And finally, one other important document that is presented is the outcome budget. And this basically deals with measurable indicators and targets for the centrally sponsored scheme and the central sector schemes for the year 2019 and 20. So this is basically dealing with the outcome targets and the output targets for various schemes, and this is based on measurable indicators. Now this can be an important aspect for us from the preliminary examination point of view. And a question can be asked in the exam as to which all documents are presented under the provisions of Indian Constitution during the budget. So the answer there will be the annual financial statement, demand for grants and the finance bill. And further, under the FRBM Act, these three documents are presented. So this can also be a potential question. Further, the government budget is classified into revenue budget and the capital budget. And the revenue and the capital budgets are further divided into revenue receipts and revenue expenditure, and also capital receipts and capital expenditure. Revenue receipts are basically the income sources of the government, and these include tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Now previously, the expenditures under the revenue expenditure and the capital expenditure were divided into plan and non-plan expenditure. However, they have now been removed and such classification is not provided in the budget, and this classification of expenditure into plan and non-plan expenditure was done in the budget of 2017 and 18. To further understand the basics of budgeting, you can go through the NCERT of class 11th, that is the macroeconomics NCERT, and for constitutional provisions regarding the budget, you can read the standard book on polity, for example Lakshmikant. And also in the description box today, you will be provided with a document by the name Key to Government Budget, and under that you can understand the various terms that are being used here. Now first let us look at the key features of the budget 2019 and 20. So the budget at a glance highlights the key features of the budget, and it talks about various new and innovative initiatives that are being started by the Government of India. So first in this line is the vision for 5 trillion economy which has been declared by the government. And this vision for $5 trillion economy will be driven by investment. So this is one of the important targets which has been set under this budget. Secondly, the focus is on transforming rural lives. And in this, the government is starting various initiatives under Sphurti and Aspire programs. So we will understand all these initiatives as we move forward. Another important initiative is the creation of new Jal Shakti Mantralaya. And this is being done in order to ensure Har Ghar Jal or water supply to all. And this new ministry has been created by integrating the Ministry of Water Resources and Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation. Further, the focus is on easing of direct and indirect taxation, strengthening connectivity and infrastructure. Another important focus of this budget is on strengthening connectivity infrastructure, also focusing on Gandhipedia to sensitize society, focus on India's soft power. For example, India is harnessing this soft power through its Yoga Day celebrations across the world and various other measures. And in this sector, the government is planning some changes in the commercial arm of ISRO. Further, various new initiatives in the budget of 2019 and 20 include Pradhan Mantri Karam Yogi Mandhan Yojana, and this focuses on pension benefits to retail traders and small shopkeepers. And you would be knowing that in the interim budget of 2019 and 20, the government had proposed Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Mandhan Yojana focusing on labour. Further, there will be focus on enhanced interest deduction for affordable housing loan, and there will be tax benefits for corporate taxpayers. Further, the government has provided a vision to become $5 trillion economy, and this will be through a virtuous cycle of investment. And India has presently become the 6th largest economy. And if you see it through the purchasing power parity terms, India presently is at 3rd number across the world. Further, another new initiative is the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, and it aims at establishing robust fisheries management framework. Further, schemes for faceless electronic tax assessment. An important initiative is that Aadhaar and PAN card will now be interchangeable for taxation. Further, government is also focusing on various reforms, and they have provided a reform, perform and transform agenda. And the focus will be on rationalization of goods and services tax. Focus will also be on insolvency and bankruptcy code and real estate authority or the RERA Act. Focus on changing common man's life will be through the Mudra Yojana, Ujjwala Yojana and the Saubhagya scheme. So these are the key aspects of the budget 2019 and 20, and in the discussion further, we will understand all these aspects in detail. Further, the government has released the vision for Indian economy for next decade. Now, the context of declaring this vision for the next decade for Indian economy is that our economy has reached the level of US dollars 2.7 trillion. And the government thinks and aims that our capacity is to reach the level of US dollars 5 trillion. So the government aims at making the Indian economy a $5 trillion economy. And in this background, to make Indian economy a $5 trillion economy, the government has released this vision document for next decade. And in this vision document, it has identified 10 most important areas of focus. So as you can see, the focus will be on physical and social infrastructure. Second is related to digital infrastructure and various aspects of information communication technology, and they will be part of Digital India. Third is pollution-free India. So it also targets the environment sector. Fourth is Make in India. Then there is water management and clean rivers. Focus is also on blue economy, space programs, self-sufficiency and export of food grains, healthy society and Team India with Jan Bhagidari. So all these aspects have been covered in the present budget also. And this vision theme for next decade can be used in your mains examination answers as well as in essays in the mains examination. Further, you should prepare all these sectors one by one and also the various ongoing schemes and initiatives of Government of India in all these sectors. And they can be potential questions for you in the mains examinations. So after this, let us take up the various steps that have been taken by the Government of India in this budget. Now the government has set this target of $5 trillion economy based on strong macroeconomic fundamentals. And these strong fundamentals are visible from key indicators. So if you consider the gross domestic product or GDP, India is the fastest growing major economy in the world. So this aspect is very important and these facts can be asked in your preliminary examination. Further, India was the 11th largest economy in the year 2013 and 14. And presently it is the 6th largest economy in 2019 and 20. Further, in purchasing power parity terms, India is the 3rd largest economy in the world. And this aspect was asked in the preliminary examination of 2019. That is why such facts are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Another major area to see is the trend of various macroeconomic indicators. So you should keep in mind the trend of GDP growth rate in past 5 years. So as is visible from this bar graph, the GDP growth rate has neither increased continuously nor decreased continuously in the past 5 years. And such sweeping statements can be asked in your preliminary examination. So if you look at the fluctuation, highest GDP growth rate in the past 5 years was in the year 2016 and 17 and it was at about 8.2%. And presently it is at 6.8%. Further, if you look at the current account deficit, it was about 5.6% of the GDP in the year 2013 and 14. Now this has reduced considerably and is presently at 2.1% of the GDP in the year 2018 and 19. Further, the trend of current account deficit as percentage of GDP is also important. So you can see that it has been fluctuating continuously and in the past 2 years, it has now started increasing as compared to 2016 and 17. Further, India has attracted $64.4 billion worth of foreign direct investment in the year 2018 and 19. And this budget proposes that there will be 100% FDI in the insurance intermediaries. So this sector will also now be opened up for FDI. Further, statutory limit for foreign portfolio investment in a company will now be increased to sectoral limit. And regarding FDI in single brand retail, the government proposes that the local sourcing norms will now be eased. And this was one of the major factors which inhibited FDI in single brand retail. So the government now aims at removing this barrier to improve FDI in single brand retail. Now let us also look at the trends of other important macroeconomic indicators. And these trends show that India is on the path of fiscal consolidation and inflation management. And this will give a major boost to the government's target of making the Indian economy a $5 trillion economy. Now, if you look at the trend of fiscal deficit, it has continuously been decreasing after a peak of 5.9% in the year 2011 and 12. And these trends can be important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Further, if you look at the trend of consumer price index, it has also been decreasing, although it has presently increased in the month of January and April in the year 2019. And if you look at the trend of disinvestment receipts, which the government carries out by diluting its stake in the public sector enterprises, it has also fluctuated and has not remained constant. It decreased to about 80,000 rupees crore in the year 2018 and 19. However, in the present budget estimate, it is expected to increase at about 1,05,000 crore rupees. Another important area, that is the debt to GDP ratio of Government of India, has now been on decreasing trend. And this can be a very important aspect for us from the preliminary examination. So if you look at the debt of Government of India as a percentage of GDP, it was highest in the year 2015 and 16 and was at about 51.6%. And presently in the year 2018 and 19, it was about 48.4%. And it is expected to further decrease and reach the level of 48%. So here the decreasing trend has been witnessed, and this is important. And another important macroeconomic indicator which gives a boost to the government's target of making Indian economy a $5 trillion economy is that India's sovereign external debt to GDP ratio is amongst the lowest globally and is less than only 5%, which means that the government's external borrowings are very limited, which is a good sign. So all these trends of macroeconomic indicators are important for us from preliminary examination point of view and should be kept in mind. Now let us look at various deficit trends of the government budget. So in this, let us look at the trend of fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit and primary deficits. And we will look at it for the past 2 years. In this, they have provided the estimates which were provided by the government in the budget of 2018 and 19 and what was the actual fiscal deficit or revenue deficit in that year. Further, for this year, we only have budget estimates and the actual data will come only after the financial year ends. So if you look at the fiscal deficit which reflects the government's borrowings, it was about 3.5% in the year 2017 and 18. Further, the actual realization of fiscal deficit in the year 2018 and 19 was 3.4. And the current estimate is that it will be at 3.3 year at the end of this fiscal year. So it shows a decreasing trend. So in all this data, you can ignore the estimates because these were the projections by the government. So you should only focus on the actual status of fiscal deficit. Further, if you look at the revenue deficit, which reflects the revenue expenditure and the revenue receipts of the government, it was at 2.6% in the year 2017 and 18. Further, it decreased to only 2.2% in the year 2018 and 19, and it is expected to go high to 2.3% in the year 2019 and 20. Next is effective revenue deficit. Now from revenue expenditure, some of the amount is spent for capital creation in various states, etc. And that amount is deducted from the revenue deficit and it reflects the effective revenue deficit. So this is also one of the deficit trend which is important. And you can see that it was about 1.5% in the year 2017 and 18 and it decreased to 1.1%. So which means that the cost of running the government is decreasing and it is showing a declining trend. However, it is expected to increase to about 1.3% in the 2019 and 20. Further, fourth important deficit is the primary deficit and it reflects fiscal deficit minus the interest paid by the government on its various debts. So this is also showing a declining trend and it was at 0.4% in the year 2017 and 18 and it reduced to 0.8% in the year 2018 and 19. And it is expected to remain at same level at 0.2% in the 2019 and 20 financial year. So these are few trends and this data can be readily used in your answers in the mains examination and questions can also be asked in the preliminary examination based on such data. For further basic definitions of fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit, you can go through the NCERT of class 11th of macroeconomics. Now let us understand what are the sources of revenue for the government and which are the major areas where the government spends this money. Now in this particular aspect, the trend is very important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So here you should note which is the highest source of revenue for the government. So as you can clearly see, the corporate tax, which has a share of 21%, is the highest source of revenue for Government of India. The second highest source is the government borrowings and other liabilities, and which includes about 20%. Now, if you consider the various types of taxes, you should know the trend of taxes as to which contributes highest to the government revenue. So in this case, the contribution of corporate tax is about 21% and it is the highest source of revenue for government. The second highest tax revenue source for the government is the goods and services tax, which is an indirect tax. After that, income tax has a share of 16% and it will be at a number 3. Further, under the tax revenue head, the fourth number is 8% union excise duties and the least is the 4% customs duties. And as regarding non-tax revenue, its share is about 9%. So the order of contribution of various taxes in the government revenue is very important for us from exam point of view. And this order should be kept in mind. Now after this, let us understand the trend and order of various areas in which the government spends its money. So the highest expenditure is 23%, which is the state's share of taxes and duties. After this, 18% chunk of the government money goes into interest payments. And regarding central sector schemes, it takes about 13% of the government expenditure and it comes at third number. Further, centrally sponsored schemes have a share of 9% and they are at fourth number. And the expenditure in centrally sponsored schemes and expenditure on defense both have a share of 9%. And finally, 8% share in the expenditure is of subsidies. So in the preliminary examination, you can be asked the order of expenditure of government in various heads. So here you should note the important trends like highest share can be in interest payments, then it will be defense, and finally subsidies. So this can be one way of asking the question. So you should be aware of the share of various heads in the expenditure and as well as share and the trend and order of contribution of various taxes to the government revenue. Now another important aspect is the trends of government subsidies. So in this you should note that which sector is getting the highest share of government subsidies. So as you can see here, the highest share is of food subsidies and which stood at 100,000 crores in the year 2017 and 18 and it increased to about 171,000 crores in the year 2018 and 19. The second highest share in the government subsidies is of the fertilizer sector and at third number is the petroleum sector. So this trend is important and you should note the order in which the government subsidies are being given. So highest is being given to the food sector, second number is of the fertilizers and third is of petroleum. And at fourth number are the interest subsidies. So this order is important, that is the decreasing trend of government subsidies to various sectors like food, fertilizer, petroleum and interest subsidies. Now before seeing the various tax proposals that have been proposed in the budget of 2019 and 20, let us look at the trends in the tax receipts. And this can also be a very important aspect for us from the preliminary examination point of view. So as far as gross tax receipts are concerned, there has been fluctuation in the past 10 years. So as you can see here, it was 10.2% in the year 2011 and 12 and now it has increased to 11.7%. However, there have been dips and peaks. So as you can see, it was the lowest at 10% in the year 2014 and 15. Further, it increased to 12.1% in the year 2018 and 19. However, now it is expected to come down to again 11.7%. So you should be aware that the gross tax receipts as a percentage of GDP has not been continuously increasing. Further, as far as direct tax as a percentage of GDP is concerned, this also shows fluctuations. However, after the year 2015 and 16, when it was at 5.4%, it has increased till the year 2018 and 19. And in this year, it was about 6.4%. However, it is expected to reduce to 6.3% in the coming year. And as far as indirect tax is concerned as a percentage of GDP, there also we have witnessed fluctuations and it was at peak of 5.6% in the year 2016 and 17. However, it dipped to 5.3% in the next year. However, it again increased in the year 2018 and 19 and it is further expected to dip to 5.3% in the coming year. So all these have been showing various fluctuations. So in these trends, you should be aware of the peak years. And you should also note that these taxes as percentage of GDP have not been continuously increasing or continuously decreasing. Now let us look at the various tax proposals in this budget. Now before that, let us look at some trends in the collections of direct taxes. So if you look at the direct tax collections, it has increased by 78% from year 2013 and 14 to the year 2018 and 19. But if you look at the direct tax collection in the past 2 years, it increased by about 19.1% in the year 2017 and 18, and it increased by about 13.5% in the year 2018 and 19. So if you look at the past 2 years, the rate of increase of direct tax collection has decreased from the year 2017 and 18 to 2018 and 19. So you can see that there has been fluctuation in the rate of increase of direct tax collection. And this rate of increase in the direct tax collection has decreased from the year 2017 and 18 to the year 2018 and 19. Further, if you look at the number of taxpayers, they have also increased from 2013 and 14 till the year 2017 and 18. And there has been an increase of 48.1%. Now, after this, let us look at the various steps that have been taken by the Government of India regarding the taxation system in India. So, the first is that it proposes faceless e-assessment of tax. Now, the existing system of scrutiny by the Income Tax Department involved a high level of personal interaction between the taxpayers and the department. And this led to certain undesirable practices on the part of tax officials. And this led to the instances of tax avoidance and also corruption in the taxation system. So to reduce such instances, a scheme of faceless assessment in the electronic mode involving no human interface is being launched this year in a phased manner. And to start with, such e-assessment shall be carried out in cases requiring verification of certain specified transactions or discrepancies. Further, under this, the cases selected for scrutiny shall be allocated to assessment units in a random manner, and notices will be sent or issued electronically by a central cell. And this will be done without disclosing the name, designation or location of the assessing officer. And the central will be the single point of contact between the taxpayer and the department. So the powers or the discretionary powers of the regional tax departments is being reduced, and now the powers will be concentrated in the hands of central body. And this new scheme of assessment represents a paradigm shift in the functioning of income tax department. Further, we have already looked at the trends in the direct tax collections, and this is a reflection of the reform agenda of the government. Now after this, let us look at another important initiative which is related to enhancing ease of taxpayers. So if you look at India's ease of doing business rankings, under the category of paying taxes, it has shown a great jump from 172 to 121 in the year 2019. So in line with this agenda of ease of paying taxes, tax laws are proposed to be simplified to reduce genuine hardships to taxpayers. And an important initiative in this line is the interchangeability of PAN card and Aadhaar card. And this will allow those who do not have PAN card to file income tax returns by simply quoting their Aadhaar number and also using it wherever they are required to quote the PAN number. So this is another step in the simplification of tax paying process. Further, there has been a change in the threshold limit of taxation scrutiny, and the threshold for launching prosecution for non-filing of returns has been enhanced from rupees 3,000 to rupees 10,000. And if you go through the preliminary examination questions of 2019, the ease of paying taxation was asked in the Ease of Doing Business Index of World Bank. So that is why such snippets in the budget document become important for us from the exam point of view. Now after this, let us take up the changes in the corporate tax rates. So the change is that the threshold for applicability of lower corporate tax of 25% has now been increased from rupees 250 crore to rupees 400 crore. Which means that now more corporates will be able to avail this reduced corporate tax rate of 25%. And this will cover about 99.3% of the companies that are functioning in India. And now only 0.7% of the companies continue to be taxed at 30%. So the number of companies which are being taxed at a corporate tax rate of 30% has reduced considerably. Now an important benefit of this measure is that this will reduce tax burden on majority of smaller domestic companies and will make them competitive and stimulate growth and investment. Further, to promote affordable housing, the government has announced enhanced interest deduction up to rupees 3.5 lakh for purchases of an affordable house. Now, as we have seen earlier, the government's budget has been on reforming the NBFC sector. So in line with this, the government has proposed this, that It will focus on deposit taking and systematically important non-deposit taking NBFCs, and they will now be able to pay tax in the year they receive interest for certain bad or doubtful assets. Although this proposal is not very important for us from exam point of view. Further, to promote digital payment system in the corporates, the government has announced that there will be a tax deduction of 2% on the cash withdrawal which exceeds rupees 1 crore. So this will be about rupees 2 lakh on every withdrawal which exceeds rupees 1 crore. So this is a measure to discourage the cash transactions by the corporates. Now another important step which is related to the income tax rates is that effective tax rate for individuals which are having taxable income above rupees 2 crores has been increased. And under this, there will be a surcharge of 3% for individuals earning income between 2 crore to 5 crores. And there will be a surcharge of 7% on individuals earning above rupees 5 crores. Now, this is being done because India is witnessing rising income levels. And this rise in income levels has been in the highest income bracket. So, as there has been an increase in the individuals who are in high income bracket, the government has imposed these surcharges. And you should all know that surcharge represents tax on tax. Further, those having annual income of up to rupees 5 lakh are not required to pay any income tax, and this includes self-employed as well as small traders, salary earners and senior citizens. Now, all these proposals that we have discussed till now were related to the direct tax system. Another important initiative has been proposed for indirect taxes, and this is Sabka Vishwas Legacy Dispute Resolution Scheme. And this has been proposed for quick closure of service tax and excise related litigations. So basically it is aimed at high pendency of cases in the pre-GST regime. So all these are the important tax proposals in the budget of 2019 and 20, and all these should be kept in mind from your exam point of view. And you can quote all these proposals in the answers in the mains examination as well, and especially in those answers which are related to the taxation system or reforms in the taxation system. Now let us take up various proposals and initiatives for different sectors of the Indian economy. So in this section we will focus on the infrastructure development. Now in the infrastructure sector, India requires an investment of averaging rupees 20 lakh crore every year, which is about US dollars 300 billion per year. Further, investment driven growth requires access to low cost capital, and the government wants to invest rupees 100 lakh crore in the next 5 years. And keeping such targets in mind, the government has declared various initiatives and proposed various measures. First in this line is the creation of Credit Guarantee Enhancement Corporation, and it will be set up in the year 2019 and 20. And this basically aims at improving the investment scenario in the infrastructure sector. Now currently, most of the infrastructure financing in our country is being done by the banks. Now to diversify the sources of investment in the infrastructure, the government has declared an action plan to deepen the markets for long-term bonds with special focus on the infrastructure sector. It will focus on corporate bond repos, credit default swaps, etc. Further, to improve the liquidity scenario in the debt securities, the government has proposed to permit investments made by FIIs, that is the foreign institutional investors, and foreign portfolio investments in debt securities. And these FIIs will be permitted to invest in debt securities which are issued by infrastructure debt funds NBFCs, and they can transfer the securities as well as sell securities in this sector. And by allowing this buying and selling and transferring, it will improve the liquidity scenario in the investments in infrastructure sector. Previously in the housing finance, National Housing Bank used to do finance as well as regulate this sector. However, a new change has been proposed in this budget, and now National Housing Bank will focus on the financing of housing projects, and RBI will now act as a regulator for the housing finance sector. Further, in the pension sector, the government is implementing a new pension scheme. And for the implementation of this new pension scheme, an NPS trust was created. However, this NPS trust used to work under the PFRDA or the Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority. And this created a conflict of interest. This is because the PFRDA is also the regulator for the pension sector. So that is why this budget proposes the separation of this NPS trust, which is the implementing body for new pension scheme, from the PFRDA. And finally, the government is also focusing on investment in social infrastructure. And for this, a very innovative proposal has been given in this budget. So this budget proposes the creation of a social stock exchange. Now, this social stock exchange will be an electronic fundraising platform and it will be under the regulatory ambit of SEBI or the Security Exchange Board of India. Now, what this exchange will do is that it will list social enterprises and voluntary organizations, and this will help in realization of a social welfare objectives so that these organizations like the voluntary organizations or the social enterprises can raise capital, for example, equity, debt, and units like a mutual fund. Further, it aims to make our capital markets closer to the masses and meet various social welfare objectives to inclusive growth and financial inclusion. Now, according to the World Investment Report of 2019, which is released by the UNCTAD, there has been a consecutive decline in the FDI across the globe, and this decline has been witnessed for past 3 consecutive years. Now, despite a decline in the FDI at global level, India has witnessed an increase of 6% growth from the previous year to $64 billion. And to further boost the FDI in Indian economy, the government has proposed these measures. So let us look at them. So in this line, the government will examine the suggestions of further opening up of FDI in aviation sector, media and insurance sectors. Further, 100% FDI will be permitted for insurance intermediaries. Further, the local sourcing norms will be eased for FDI in single brand retail sector. Now, you'd be knowing that the government had already opened up FDI in the single brand retail sector. However, because of strict local sourcing norms, they were not being translated into real investments. So this is another measure at easing the FDI in this sector. Further, the government is planning to host annual global investors meet in India, and it will use the National Infrastructure Investment Fund. And you might be knowing that there was a question in the preliminary exams related to the National Infrastructure Investment Fund in the year 2016. Further, the government has proposed to increase the statutory limit for foreign portfolio investment in a company from 24 sector to sectoral foreign investment limit. And it has also proposed the merging of NRI portfolio investment scheme route with that of the foreign portfolio investment route. So all these measures are aimed at improving the FDI investments in India. Further, to improve infrastructure with an aim to create $5 trillion economy, the government has proposed various initiatives for roads, railways, aviation sector, etc. So regarding the road sector, the government is focusing on comprehensive restructuring of the National Highway Program. And this is being done to ensure that the national highway grid could be created of desirable length and capacity. And also it aims at using and creating important financiable models. As far as infrastructure development in the railways is concerned, the government is proposing public-private partnerships to unleash faster development and completion of railway tracks, rolling stock manufacturing and delivery of passenger freight services. Further, a blueprint has also been declared for developing gas grids, water grids and highways and regional airports. Now, all these points can be used in your answers related to infrastructure regarding various steps that are being taken by the government for these sectors. Further, the government is focusing on the development of infrastructure connectivity besides the development of infrastructure sector. So in this line, the first initiative that has been proposed is the launch of India's first indigenously developed payment ecosystem for transport. Second is creation of enabling ecosystem for growth of maintenance, repair and overhaul for self-reliance in the aviation sector. Further, to meet the climate change targets, the government has proposed the commencement of Phase 2 of the FAME scheme or faster adoption of manufacturing of electric vehicles in India. And this is being done in order to encourage faster adoption of electric vehicles. So basically this aims at production of or increasing the production of electric vehicles. And this will help India in achieving the targets of the Paris deal. Further, for boosting the inland water transport, the government in the Jal Marg Vikas has proposed a multi-modal terminals at Sahibganj and Haldia and navigational lock at Farakka, and all this is to be completed in the year 2019 and 20. Further, the government proposes expansion of metro rail projects, and also it has started the second phase of Bharatmala to help the states develop the state road networks. Now, initially the Bharatmala project did not focus on the development of state roads. So now the focus of Bharatmala is also directed towards the development of state road networks besides the national highways. And finally, there is a proposal of public-private partnerships for the development of railway infrastructure. The government has also proposed various initiatives and measures for promoting the startups ecosystem in India. Now, you would be knowing that the government had earlier imposed an angel tax on the angel investors in the startup. However, this tax was being seen as a regressive measure and was restricting the growth of startups in India, and especially the investment in the startups in India. So, in order to remove this regressive step, the government has now declared that there will be no scrutiny in valuation of share premiums for the startups and the investors who file requisite declarations and provide information in their return. The second step is of e-verification to resolve investors' identity and source of funding related issues. The third step is that there will be no inquiry or verification by assessing officer without obtaining approval of supervisory officer. So the discretion of the assessing officers has now been restricted. Further, the valuation of shares issued to the Category 2 alternative investment funds will be beyond the scope of income tax scrutiny. And exemptions have been provided from capital gains for the sale of residential house for investment in startups, and this has been extended up to 31st March 2021. Now, various measures have also been declared for the micro, small and medium enterprises or the MSME sector. So the first is related to easing the investment, which provides for provision of loans up to 1 crore for MSMEs within 59 minutes through a dedicated online portal. Further, government has allocated rupees 350 crores for the financial year 2019 and 20 for the 2% interest subvention for all GST registered MSMEs on fresh or incremental loans. Further, it has been proposed that there will be a creation of payment platforms for MSMEs to eliminate delays in the government payments. This is because the government procurement is the major area where the MSMEs conduct their sales. And finally, a scheme has been launched for extension of pension benefits to about 3 crore retail traders and small shopkeepers who are having annual turnover of less than rupees 1.5 crore. And all these have been proposed under a scheme by the name Pradhan Mantri Karam Yogi Mandhan scheme. Now, to further give a boost to the electrical vehicles, as we have already learned, the government has launched the phase 2 of the FAME scheme. Now, besides this, to make India a global manufacturing hub for electric vehicles, the government has proposed GST rate on electrical vehicles will be lowered from 12% to 5%. And also additional income tax deduction of 1.5 lakh on the interest paid on loans taken to purchase the electric vehicles. So all these measures are aimed at boosting the manufacturing of electric vehicles in India and making India a global manufacturing hub. Now, in the banking and financial sector, we know that the banks were facing the problem of NPAs and the twin balance sheet problem, as was highlighted by the economic survey. So government took various measures and they have produced some results. So in this line, the non-performing assets have reduced by over rupees 1 lakh crore in the last year. Further, there have been record recovery of over rupees 4 lakh crore over last 4 years. And the domestic credit growth has risen to 13.8%. Now, to further improve the situation of banks, the government has proposed capital infusion of rupees 70,000 crores. And this is being done in order to boost credit in India. And you might be knowing that in the previous year, in the 2017 prelims, there was a question regarding the trend in the capital infusion in the banking sector. So that is why such facts become important for us from preliminary examination point of view. And another measure is that account holders will have control over the deposit of cash by others in their accounts. Now, as we have seen in the tax proposals in the budget, the government has proposed a scheme by the name Sabka Vishwas to reduce the pendency litigation of pre-GST era regimes. So in this line, let us look at various other measures that have been taken by the government regarding simplification of GST and indirect taxes. So first in this line is the fully automated GST refund module, and this shall be implemented and multiple tax ledgers to be replaced by one and invoice details to be captured in a central system. So all these are aimed at simplification of the process of filing GST. Further, a simplified single return system to be rolled out, and taxpayers with annual turnover of less than 5 crores need to file only quarterly returns. And finally, an electronic invoicing system is proposed, which will eventually eliminate the need for a separate e-way bill. And you might be knowing that the e-way bill is used for trucks which are transporting the goods in interstate as well as intrastate trade. And this e-way bill has been a major contentious issue for the small traders. Further, regarding the non-banking financial companies reforms, as you all might be knowing that this sector was suffering in the past year. And this was majorly because of the default of IL and FS and various other issues. Now we all know that NBFCs are important source of finance besides the banking sector. And that is why the government has focused mainly in this budget in 2019 on the NBFC reforms. So let us look at these reforms. So in this line, the government aims at ensuring that the NBFCs that are fundamentally sound continue to get funding from banks and mutual funds without being unduly risk averse. Secondly, for purchasing of high-rated pooled assets of financially sound NBFCs, which amount to a total of rupees 1 lakh crore, the government will provide one-time 6 months partial credit guarantee to the public sector banks for the loss of up to 10%. So this is basically aimed at ensuring the non-performing NBFCs. Now this partial credit guarantee will act as an incentive for the public sector banks to buy bad loans and non-performing assets of the NBFC. Further, the government will take necessary steps to allow all NBFCs to directly participate on the TREADS platform. So these are various initiatives regarding the NBFC reform. Now let us take up the various initiatives that are announced in the budget of 2019 and 20 related to the social sector. And this will include various initiatives related to women, youth, etc. So first let us take up the initiatives for women. Now the Government of India recognizes the role that is being played by women in the rural economy and overall Indian economy. So that is why it has changed its approach from women-centric policy to women-led initiative. So first in this line is that the Women's Self-Help Group Interest Subvention Program will be implemented in all districts of India. Further, an overdraft facility of rupees 5,000 is being provided for every verified Women's Self-Help Group member who is having a Jan Dhan bank account. And one woman in every self-help group will be eligible for a loan of up to rupees 1 lakh under the Mudra scheme. So these are few initiatives related to women. Now keeping in mind the opportunities provided by the demographic dividend, the government has announced various measures for youth of India. First in this line is the new education policy, and this aims at transforming India's higher education system to one of the best global education systems. Second is the creation of National Research Foundation, and this will fund, coordinate and promote research in India. Third initiative is the Study in India program, and this will help India attract foreign students to make India a global higher education hub. And the focus of this Study in India program will be on bringing foreign students in the higher education institutions to make India a global hub for higher education, and rupees 400 crore will be provided under the head world-class institutions for the financial year 2019 and 20. Further, setting up of Higher Education Commission of India to promote greater autonomy and focus on academic outcomes. And also, a National Sports Education Board will be set up for the development of sports persons under the Khelo India scheme. So these are few initiatives related to the youth of India. Further, in the social sector, the government is targeting the transforming of lives through the Ujjwala and the Saubhagya scheme. And under the Ujjwala Yojana, as we all know that, LPG connections are provided. So in this line, the target is of 7 crore LPG connections. And under the Saubhagya scheme, the target is of 100% households will be provided with electricity. And by 2022, every single rural family will have electricity and clean cooking facility. Now, all these initiatives that we have learned regarding the social sector, they are mostly important facts which can be used in the mains answers and also in your essays. And regarding the various schemes that have been mentioned here, for example, the Ujjwala, the Saubhagya scheme or the Housing for All scheme, they will be covered in the prelims compass. So that is why we are not focusing on them right now. So in this line, let us understand what are the targets that are set up for Housing for All by 2022 targets. So in this line, 1.54 crore rural house will be completed in the coming 5 years. Further, 1.95 crore houses are proposed to be constructed in the next 3 years in the urban areas. And also the average number of days for completion of houses has come down from 314 days in 2015 and 16 to 114 days in 2017 and 18. And also these houses will be provided with toilets, electricity and LPG connections. And apart from these, the government is proposing reform measures to be taken up to promote rental housing in India. And also a model tenancy law will be finalized and will be circulated to various states. So these are few initiatives in the housing sector. Now let us look at the initiatives related to the farmers' welfare and water security. Now we all know that majority of people in India still live in villages and depend upon agriculture and traditional industries. So keeping that in mind, the government is focusing the farmer welfare, and under this, the target is to boost agro-rural industries through cluster-based development under Sphurti scheme. And this Sphurti scheme is the scheme of fund for upgradation and regeneration of traditional industries. So in this, the government aims to set up common facility centers, and these centers will facilitate cluster-based development to make the traditional industries more productive, profitable and capable for generating sustained employment opportunities in the rural areas. And the main focus of this scheme will be bamboo, honey and khadi. So the government will develop clusters and they will focus on employment generation in these sectors. So the target is of setting 100 new clusters and enabling 50,000 artisans during 2019 and 20. Now, besides targeting the cluster-based development, the government is also focusing on improving the technology of these industries. And for this, the scheme for promotion of innovation, rural industry and entrepreneurship, that is the Aspire, has been consolidated for setting up of livelihood business incubators and technology business incubators. And in this, the target is of setting up 100 business incubators to be set up to enable 75,000 entrepreneurs. So this scheme basically focuses on technological aspect of rural industries, and under this, business incubators or technology business incubators will be set up and they will target the improvement in technology of these rural industries. Now, second focus is on fishing and fishermen communities. So keeping them in mind, the government has proposed a new scheme named as Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. And this scheme will address critical gaps in strengthening value chain, infrastructure, modernization, production, productivity and quality control of fisheries. Now, next major initiative of Government of India has been the constitution of Jal Shakti Mantralaya or the Jal Shakti Ministry. And this has been done by integrating the ministries of Water Resource, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation and the Ministry of Drinking Water. Further, the government has identified 1592 critical and overexploited blocks under the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. And in this, the government is exploring the possibility of using additional funds available under the CAMPA or the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority. Further, this Jal Shakti Mantralaya will look at the management of water resources and water supply in an integrated and holistic manner. And this ministry will also work with states to ensure Har Ghar Jal to all rural households by 2024 under a new mission named as Jal Jeevan Mission. So the target is of providing water to all rural households by 2024. So this is an important target and the name of this is Jal Jeevan Mission. And this will focus on integrated demand and supply side management at local level, creation of local infrastructure for rainwater harvesting, groundwater recharge and household wastewater management. And further, this Jal Jeevan Mission will converge with other central and state government schemes to achieve its objective of sustainable water supply management across the country. Now, in the field of space technology, previously you might be knowing that Antrix was the commercial arm of ISRO. However, there were various corruption charges on this organization. So that is why the government has now proposed a new Space India Limited, and it will be a public sector enterprises and will now be incorporated as new commercial arm of the Department of Space. And this is being done in order to tap the benefits of research and development carried out by ISRO or the Indian Space Research Organization to harness India's space power commercially and to spearhead commercialization of space products, including production of launch vehicles, transfer to technologies and marketing of the space products. So all these objectives are important with which this company is being created. Further, this budget also focuses on international relations, and in this it has proposed to exploit India's soft power. So various proposals have been provided in the budget relating to India's soft powers. The first in this line is the proposal to consider issuing of Aadhaar card for NRIs. And this will be issued for NRIs with Indian passports on their arrival without waiting for 180 days. Second is the mission to integrate traditional artisans with global markets. And also they will be provided support for necessary patents and geographical indicators. So this step is basically aimed at harnessing the various traditional artisans and handicrafts in India that are available because of the diversity of India. Now presently India does not have diplomatic missions in all the countries of the world. However, India proposes to have diplomatic missions in all countries of the world because of the growing power and influence of India. So in this line, 18 new Indian diplomatic missions in Africa have been approved in March 2018, and out of which 5 have already been opened. And also, another 4 new embassies are intended to be created in the year 2019 and 20. Now, India provides assistance to various weaker countries through its Indian Development Assistance Scheme. So in this line, the government has proposed the revamping of this Indian Development Assistance Scheme, or the IDEAS. So this fact is important, and you should note that the term IDEAS or the IDEAS is related to the Indian Development Assistance to the foreign weaker countries. Further, 17 iconic tourism sites are to be developed, and they will be developed into model world-class tourist destinations. And further, India aims at creating a digital repository which will be aimed at preserving the rich tribal cultural heritage. Now, India will be celebrating the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So, in this line, India will be open defecation free by 2nd October 2019. Also, Rashtriya Swachh Kendra will be inaugurated at Gandhi Darshan Rajghat. And one important scheme or initiative is the Gandhipedia, and this aims at sensitizing the youth and society about positive Gandhian values, and this is being developed by National Council for Science Museums. So with this, we have come to the end of today's discussion of Budget 2019 and 20. There's a small announcement for you all. The mains compilations in the form of Mains Compass 2019 have been released on the Amazon website. So you can buy these magazines from that site. And presently only 3 magazines have been released. That is the Economic Development, Polity and Governance, and International Relations and Internal Security. The remaining magazines will be released shortly.